Hey, 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 welcome to our newest live broadcast of our Tap into Elite Performance series. And we have a brand new elite performer to introduce you to today. Dr. Dan, would you like to introduce him?
This is Rocky's brother, Zeus.
Zeus. I told him to do the Simba thing. Hold him up like Zeus. Got to do the Simba thing.
Zeus.
Yes.
He's
Zeus.
he's 9 weeks old. He is a
9
cockapoo,
weeks.
and my son wanted a second poochie. So guess what happened last week? We got a second poochie.
We can see what happened last week.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
All right. Say goodbye,
Yeah.
Zeus. All right. He's going to go by my feet because that's what he usually does. And he puts his head on my left foot, or he is in destructive mode and he's just going to, whatever is there, he's going to start biting and stuff like that. But Dr. Irene,
I
thank you
guess
very much
we'll
for
find out.
inviting me on. I look forward to our lives and our conversations and our podcasts. This is your podcast today, right?
Well, this is our Tap into Elite Performance
I'll be right back.
series.
Zeus just knocked some stuff over. Okay, I'm here.
This is real and it's raw,
Right.
folks. Yes.
Let me just
All
put this
right.
box over here. Okay.
Well, while
There you
you're
go.
doing that, I am working on seeing if we can add in Instagram. So, alrighty. So, thank you so much for being my guest on the hot seat today. And
I've never
last
been a
week,
hot seat guest, right?
no, I don't think you have. Last week, you turned the tables on me, and you interviewed me as how to tap into elite performance, health, and energy when you've fallen sick. Right, saying that even elite performers can get sick. Right,
Yes, they can.
they hit bumps in the road, they hit setbacks. Crap happens to them the same as to anyone else. And so today you volunteered to jump into the hot seat because you were listening in on my live, I think that was
Joanna,
that Tuesday with Joanna, or is that Thursday? I'm getting my days mixed
that
up.
was Tuesday.
Tuesday, so just a couple days ago. And so we started the conversation with Joanna Hodaraska, who is an elite performer in her own right. She has like a rack of medals to prove it. She's also an amazing functional nutritionist and trauma. I think she's even a pastor now that I think about it. And so Joanna asked for help in moving through a side effect of her father passing away last week. And so so if you haven't watched that live, please go back and watch it. It was very powerful in and of itself, and it really helps set even more groundwork for today so we don't have to reinvent the wheel here or say the same old. Suffice it to say that, Dr. Dan, I know that you have recently lost your mother as well. And so I want to start there because you mentioned it in the feed, in the comments, as we were working with Joanna, and that gave me the brilliant idea to, that we should see how it impacted you, right? For Joanna, she was fine, and I put parentheses, air quotes around fine, with her father's passing. She was able to get to see him one last time. It became, and I know you talk about this, a celebration of life rather than, woe is us. So there was a very positive feeling around the experience, and yet Joanna was still experiencing like an absolute like grind to a halt. She couldn't motivate herself to do anything, at least anything productive. And so we talked through how that was her, you know, her way, her body, and by that I also mean her unconscious mind's way of dealing with the stress, right? Because no matter how positive experience it is, it's still a massive stress.
It's a lot of stress. You've been through it. I've been through it.
Yes.
You know, I lost my dad, and it's just a ton of stress that happens, and so forth. And you go through different phases, you know, when you're doing this. It's less than a month for me, and I've been through so many different emotions and so many different phases.
Yeah. Exactly. And so I wanted to continue the conversation today. So thank you for being part of that, because it's understanding that, you know, elite performers, and when I say that, elite performers are simply ordinary people doing the extraordinary because they believe they can and they decide to take action. Right? That to me is when I talk about an elite performer, that's all it is. It's not some kind of holier than thou or some rarefied gift that they have. In other words, we all have the ability to be elite performers. And at the same time, elite performers, just like the rest of us, experience loss. And they need to go through the stages of grief, right? That's a normal process. And at the same time, there's a way of moving through it in a healthy way. And where you have the ability to process your emotions and everything that you're feeling in a healthy way. And then there's other ways that it impacts our life and negatively impacts our life, and it doesn't have to. So for instance, for Joanna, she wasn't able to do any kind of work. She just could not motivate herself, right? And as a self-employed person, if you can't do work,
If you're not working that day, you're not able to serve, and you're not able to make any money.
Exactly, because they go hand in hand.
Yes.
Right. So could you please describe what you have been feeling since your mom passed?
Sure. Be happy to share. I think, you know, the first thing was just when I got to North Carolina, was just the overall sadness, because when I walked into the hospital room, I knew this was it, you know, and I had said to my sisters, you know, all the grandkids now here, you know, let's, you know, they have to come tonight because it's within 48 hours, I said. That was my best guesstimate. And then I got my son on the phone, and we did a FaceTime, which was just, you know, how can I explain it? It was just overwhelming to hear her talk with him. My sisters and I were just the overwhelming sadness of that Tuesday night was just it was just really overwhelming. And when to hear her talk with James, really, you know, really my son was really something that he's biting every wire underneath the sun right now. was just overwhelming. He was crying, I was crying, my sisters were crying, and it was just something that, you know, you don't want to go through, but like you said, it's part of life. Then when we left that night, there was a sense of calm, because you know, we were all together as a family, and we were all supporting each other. We all knew the end was there. We were talking with her on Tuesday night, full well knowing, because when I had spoken to the doctor, I said it's comfort care now, and the doctor said yes. So that evening was calm, very, very fatigued, very tired. And then when we got there Wednesday, I think it was shock because she had no medications, there was no life-saving anything, all of the medications, all of the IV drips were taken out of her. And then you can see her heart was failing, and she was in pain. So then there was extreme anger because I'm like, where's the comfort care medications at this point? So I got the doc, and yeah, we're getting all of that. And then we're waiting for hospice to come in. Hospice finally came in, and unfortunately, we've been down this road before, and it was very comforting to have hospice there because we were able to go through some of the beginning of the grieving process because we know that hospice is end of life. And then Father Carmen came in after that. And that was probably the most calm it's been, during that time. She was administered last rites, and Father Carmen knew my mother and father for a long time. They were parishioners at Holy Spirit Church. And so it was actually very comforting to have him there. So we cried, we laughed. We cried, we laughed some more. We cried more, we laughed more. I mean, there was a lot to cry about. There was a lot to laugh about because she led an incredible life, and she was. There are those that say that my personality has come from her, and at that point in time, when he had left, we were just exhausted. There was a lot of, there was just a lot going on. My sisters had taken the brunt of a lot of it, being because they're all living down south, and I'm in New Jersey. So, at one point in time, we were just sitting there. We fell asleep in chairs, and I think my sister Doreen said, come on, it's time to go home. We're just sitting there, and she was comfortable in her ways. And this was now the most difficult point for me. I have a flight going home to New Jersey on Thursday morning. So now my son's graduating. So I said to my mom, I'm staying. I'm going to cancel the flight. So without any meds in her, without life-saving stuff, she could still hear, but her, she couldn't talk as, well at all, of course. And all she kept on saying was James, James, James. So her grandkids were everything to her, and her great grandkids were everything to her. And she wanted me to go home to be with James. He had a ceremony on Thursday night, a gown ceremony. Then he was going to graduate 8th grade, going into high school on Friday. So what our intention was to FaceTime my mother to hear his name and so forth, because she was always, both of my parents, I mean, those were the proud moments in their life, is to watch their grandchildren. And what happened was, as I said to my mother, and I smiled, and I said, "Ma, you gonna make it?" She went, and I said, "Mom," I said, "I'm staying," and she said, "James." So I looked at my sisters and I said, I guess I'm going home. I guess, I'm going home, so, Thursday night was the gown ceremony at the church. Even if they weren't going to announce names, which I had no idea what they were going to do, I would say, James is up there. James is doing this. because hearing is the last faculty to go. And all right, he's good. He's just chewing on a bone now. And then we were hoping that it was she would be able to make it to Friday to hear his name. So I went home with a lot of it was conflicting. There was a lot of confusion. That night I said to my mother, I loved her a million times, as I always have done. We held her hand because her hands were flailing. She wanted us to hold her hands. Must have kissed her 1,000 times that night. We went back to my sister's house and we all just sat. We put on the TV. We weren't even watching TV. Then we started talking among ourselves. Got up Thursday and we went to the airport. Just praying that she would make at least Thursday night, because I know that she wanted to hear his name. She was very upset because her great granddaughter the week before had a birthday party and she was unable to attend, of course. So, she was looking to do that. So, you're choked up at that point. The flight back to New Jersey was quiet. It was quick, very quiet. I landed at 11:30. I was in my car by 11:35. It's a very small airport, by the way, that I landed. 11:50, my sisters called me. Mommy had passed. So now, it's just the overwhelm. You pull over to the side of the road. I'm like a baby at that point. And it was very uncomfortable, of course, because I wanted to be there. She had her wishes, that what she wanted me to do. And she had passed. So then we from there we set the services and so forth, and my sisters selected me to eulogize her, of course, and so there's so many people there, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people there, and I said to my sisters, I said, she's just touched so many lives, and then we had the mass. Then I had eulogized her, and I said, I was given instructions before the eulogy. I have less than 5 minutes to eulogize Mom. I said, I don't know. Then I started yelling at everybody because everybody's crying. And I said, stop. She didn't want this. She did not want you to throw yourself in the grave with her. I will tell you, that is a very Italian-American thing, where you throw yourself into the grave. You're wearing black forever, the veil, the whole nine. I mean, I grew up with that. And my mother did not want that at all. So, I had to start this whole thing off with a joke. I'm eulogizing my mother. And it was, I needed to have everybody laugh because she had everybody laughing. She was the life of the party, wherever she went. So, Dr. Irene, now you know where this comes from. So, I said, all right, I have less than 5. I'm going to eulogize my mom. And I said, that's going to be tough because unlike my mother, I don't crave the spotlight. And unlike my mother, I can't talk in front of large groups of people. And there's hundreds of people here now, maybe about 300. Hysterical. I mean, it was appropriate. It was hysterical. Father Carmen started laughing. I thank Father Carmen for all of his comfort. And just kind of, picking 3 things in her life. I said, pick 3 things. I mean, I didn't have anything planned to say. What are 3 things? So Father Carmen had mentioned her thing was food. Oh boy. I said to my sisters, I need the recipes. Okay, I need the recipes. So they're making copies, I hope, for all the recipes. So I said Friday nights were pizza nights at my house. She never went to work on Friday. That's a story for a different time. She made pizza. We lived in this small house in the Brick City, Newark. And there were 2 rooms downstairs. There was this little kitchen with this little 1-level green oven. And pizzas came out of that oven. But I said it wasn't pizza coming out of that oven. That was love coming out of that oven because she fed. That's when she was at her best, or one of the times she was at her best. And now I'm talking about this and I'm trying to keep myself in check because now it's emotional. And she had love come out of those ovens. She fed her family from all over New Jersey who had come in. The pizza went to the restaurants, to the bars and taverns that my uncles owned, and they were sold. My friends from grammar school, from high school, college, chiropractic school, my sister's friends from forever, mutual friends, in this little house. We used to call it Little House on the Prairie. Maybe you can appreciate that, Dr. Irene, because you grew up in a farming community. It was little. There was no prairie that we lived on. It was total concrete, I can tell you that. But out of this oven came love, and she fed everybody. We didn't have the money for the pizza dough, for the gravy, for the sauce, for the mozzarella cheese, for anything that was put on there, pepperoni, sausage, but everybody was laughing at that point because they were like this. They tasted her pizza. So it was something that was palpable because she made it, and then she did touch everybody's life. I mean, I remember, all my friends, family, aunts, uncles, they just had come to her for advice. She was Dr. Ruth before Dr. Ruth. She was, Dr. Phil before Dr. Phil. And everybody was there. I remember one night I had come back from work and was feeling pretty good. Graduating high school, beautiful night, beautiful spring night. I'm working at Pathmark. I got paid. I had a couple of bucks in my pocket. I'm going to go see my boys. We're going to get a burger and a beer. I walk in to the kitchen. That's the first room in the house. And there's people crying there. And I'm like, oh, geez, I get a can of Coke. I'm like, then I noticed who was sitting there. I'm getting darts thrown at me by everybody. Darts are being thrown at me, and I went upstairs and I, took a shot. I went out, came back, and I was saying this to everybody. I was looking at the casket. I said, Mom, why'd you do that? It was, a date that I had for my senior prom. We were just going to the prom. I didn't. We were friends. We were just going to the prom. It was just hilarious, I said, Mom, why'd you do that? And she looked at me. She says, well, she needed help. She got through it. Don't worry about it. Then she handed me an ice cream soda. 3 ice cream sodas later, hysterical. We're laughing. We're just laughing about the whole situation. And, so she helped a lot of people. And then after that, love, just loving your family and your friends, because coming from an immigrant type of a family, that's important because there's no money. There's zero money. And the family unit was extremely important. And, getting your children to the next level was extremely important. Came home, anger set in, extreme anger, because she's not here. That lasted about a week, where the anger was. I was quiet and I didn't say much. And I just, went about my day, went to work. My partners left me alone. They hugged me. They kissed me on the cheek. They know that was enough. And they just let it go. I mean, the anger is not as bad, or is not as intense, if you will. It comes every now and again in waves. So there's that kind of anger, sadness phase. But then I think about the good times, and that's what she wanted. It's just the stuff that she said and the jokes and the things that she did. It will make you laugh for the rest of your life. So anyway, that's it, because I can go on for the rest of my life with this.
How are you feeling now, Dr. Dan?
I feel pretty good right now. It's all good. A little sad, but I feel pretty good. As I said, we were taught, you're not going to throw yourself in the grave. There's a memory, there's a legacy, and finish what you started in life, and make sure you continue on with what you were taught. I think that's the best way to put that.
How's your energy level?
Oh, the energy level was absolutely incredibly horrible. It's coming back. Hope it's coming back more and more. I was sick for 6 months after my father passed, on and off. I'm kind of experiencing that now. I'm experiencing that now, little sore throats, and going to bed a little bit more earlier, sleeping a little bit later, but not peeling myself out of bed. It's like, okay, it's time to get up, because I look at my son, who's 14, and I lost, I had great grandparents alive. I had all my great grandparents alive, by the way, at one time, and we were all close, and losing them. You watched my mother, my father, get up and, do work and raise the family. So I want that lesson to be taught to my son, to also grieve, because grandma's not here. And he was hysterical, crying, hysterical. That was Grandma Vinnie. Wow. You said anything about James, you had the wrath of a 4'11" Sicilian woman, which you don't want to be anywhere near that. So that was very intense. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. So your energy level has been low.
Mm-hmm.
You've been fighting some little cold or something or other, like nondescript, like hear the cough. Anger still in waves,
Mm-hmm.
with the sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And may I ask you a question?
No. Yes.
This may not be something that has consciously entered your mind, and it may or may not have anything to do with anything. Just throwing it out there. As a doctor, a functional medicine doctor, cutting edge innovation, to have your mom die of cancer, is there any feeling perhaps of guilt that maybe you should have tried harder to get her to take your recommendations? Or
that's a great point. I don't know if there's guilt. I don't know if it's guilt. I think it's anger. It's anger.
Anger. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's anger, because I'm looking at it and I'm saying to myself, here's an 82-year-old woman, growing up in even more of an immigrant family than I did. People don't speak English. You have to figure out what dialect in Sicilian. Then you got the Neapolitan dialect. It's just a confusing thing, and me and my cousins that are my age, we were the last of them that spoke the language and, understood and remembered. We had a little grandma. She didn't speak a lick. There was Grandma Kay. And I mean, these people, they just didn't speak a lick of English. So if you were going to ask for, a can of Coke, which was popular back in those 60s and 70s, and you had to communicate, in order to do that. And your heart and your training is terrible. That's the worst place that you want to be in these situations. I realized that. And the anger is that they looked at life differently. And there's part of me, I got this John McEnroe, Jimmy Connor thing going on right now. Nobody's beating anybody. Somebody's throwing, hitting an ace. The other one's hitting an ace, because you're sitting there saying she should have been more healthy 20 years ago, because, you have lung cancer. Now I'm reading statistics, I'm reading research articles, almost 66 or 65% of those with lung cancer, they pass due to malnutrition related diseases. Kidneys are shutting down, your heart, not easy to eat. So now all of a sudden, let's eat some clean protein, let's eat some nice veggies, let's get some water in there, let's get some healthy fats. Although she had a lot of olive oil, but anyway, no, she's 80 something years old. As a son, they don't listen to you when you're sitting there saying, Ma, don't eat 5 Friedels, eat 2, give me the extra 3. So no, you're not. When we were there in the hospital, she ate because of me. She ate a quarter teaspoonful of whatever was on that plate. She couldn't eat it. I mean, I said, Ma, don't do it. You don't have to do it. She goes, I'm a little hungry. Let's try it. And when she was done, she says, I can't do this anymore. This is not a quality of life. And I understood what she was saying at that point. She had not given up, but it was time to relinquish her physical body, if you will. So the training and your heart and your training as a functional medicine physician is just, you just don't want to be there. I'm sitting there, I'm saying we're going to do IV nutrient trip. We're going to throw in some glutathione. We're going to do high dose vitamin C. We're going to do some nutrition shakes. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. She wasn't having any of that. I will tell you, the night that I fed her, they brought in a pie. I don't know what type of pie it was, but oh my God, her face and her body lit up. It was like she was a child. Yes, I have pie. She had a full tablespoon or a teaspoon or whatever it was that I fed her. Her face, her eyes were dancing. Her body was dancing. Her teeth and her smile, they were dancing. They were doing it. No, 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 no. They were doing that. They were doing that. I mean, I didn't see her as happy over the last whatever period of time since that. Hold on. All right. Stop eating my rug.
So you're not talking about pie now. You're talking about Zeus, right?
What's that?
You're talking about Zeus eating, not your mom.
Yeah, Zeus is eating my rug. Okay. So anyway,
for those listening who just joined us, this is Dr. Dan's new puppy, who's 9 weeks old. His name is Zeus.
Zeus.
Go ahead. Continue.
So her eyes were dancing that this pie had come in, and she won the lottery. And I realized that, coming to America, without the money and, all of that stuff, when they got attraction, feeding your family was important. And, you have your dinner, you had some macaroni, maybe you had a little chicken parm, you had a little salad, nice salad. Salads were great. All of it was great. And after that, an hour later, you're still sitting at the table and you're laughing, and then pie came out or cake came out. You had a cup of coffee, or the parents did, the grandparents, whoever was there. Little anisette in there, little Zambuca in there, frangelica, things of that nature. And then, they would sit in the front yard. We had a front yard. We actually had grass. I think we're the only one in the neighborhood for miles that had this little patch of grass. Anyway, there was a picnic table there, and they go out, they have a couple of, a beer. My father would have a scotch, they'd have a cigarette, my mother had some wine. That was living. You've made it at that point, because the thought process was, you can feed your family, and that's what the rich people did. They had their Ganols, they had their Sviadels, they had their Napoleons, all of that stuff like that. So that's what success was, back then. You were able to feed and eat, and, you get up and you do it all over again the next day. But, little did we know that smoking and, all of that stuff was working against them. So there's anger associated with that too.
Mm-hmm.
There's good times, like I said, here's Jimmy Connors and here's John McEnroe. And they're going at it right now.
Hmm. Totally understandable. So let me ask you another question, please.
Yes.
Asking tough questions.
That's okay.
In a way. Yeah.
I'm a tough kid.
I know, you're a survivor. That is so very evident, because you come from survivors.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and speaking of survivors, and, one of the things that gets survivors through are the traditions, is that programming that goes into making you a great survivor. That's not necessarily a great thriver. I understand, because I may not be, Italian, but farmers are the same.
Yeah.
So I totally understand. So the question that I want to ask, you've said it a few times now about, and in our prior conversations, even before your mom passed, about this phrase, throwing yourself into the grave. So the question I want to ask, rather than just tell you what I think, is, given that it permeated the whole culture that you grew up in, that you were expected to throw yourself into the grave, even though your mom didn't want that for you, is it possible that on some level, your unconscious mind, which is where the programming lives, is saying, no, this is not how it's supposed to be? You may be consciously saying, this is a happy time, celebrate her life. And perhaps, is it possible that unconsciously there's some programming in there that's going, no, you were supposed to throw yourself into the grave with her, remember?
Oh yeah, I mean,
which is really what you did with your father, being sick for 6 months.
There's always part of you that goes in there, right? There's always part of you that goes in there. I don't know if it's good or bad, maybe memories or something along those lines, but there's always a little something that goes in there. So, I grew up with, when somebody passed away, there's no TV for 6 months. You're 7 years old. It's in the 60s. Somebody passed away. You're sitting there after the funeral, and you're just sitting there. Turn on the TV, Grandma. No. Then they wore the black. They had the little valley thing in front. they carried on those traditions, and we actually learned to despise those traditions because it just didn't seem right, to us. And we were becoming more modernized, if you will, or Americanized, modernized. And so, but when somebody does pass, you know, you lose some of you in that. You have to build up again. That's the way I look at it. I had great grandparents alive, and some of them lived into my college years, and we were all close. And it was sad, but then you remembered them, and you were able to fulfill. See, it's all about fulfilling a dream too, because who came here and who wanted you to do this or that or whatever. There was always the saying, if you're going to be a shoemaker, you're going to be the best shoemaker the world has ever seen. That's just the way it was. We didn't come here to have you be a fill in the blank. It wasn't anything along those lines. And we were, were able to remember those things. And now, at some point in time, that gave you motivation and energy, or whatever the case may be, something along those lines, to take it to the next level, because that's what was expected. That's what you wanted to do. As my family would say, it's not genetics, it's genetical. It's probably in my genetical DNA at this point. So waiting for it to kick in with my mom in terms of going to the next level, because it was important for them to be here, and it was important for them to live a different lifestyle than what they were accustomed to.
And as Nietzsche said, that he who has a why can endure almost anyhow.
That's right.
Right. And in neurophysiological terms, when you have your vision, your goal, and you have your big why surrounding it, your purpose, it lights up your prefrontal cortex.
It sure does.
Rock star team. And, it's like game time. So
that's ready to kick in, by the way, just to let you know. Game time is ready to kick in. I feel it.
Right. So
watch out, world.
And I want to help you do that in the healthiest, fastest way possible. Final question.
Final answer.
Is this your final answer? We'll see. I'll just make it a statement, because I know you know this. And that is that no matter how positive an experience it was for you on so many levels, and a celebration of your mom's life, it's still a massive stress.
Of course it is.
Mentally, emotionally, physically.
Everything.
Right. And when you're, I always say, I don't know that there's ever any good way for a loved one to pass. My mom had terminal cancer for 5.5 months before she did. My dad unexpectedly flatlined right in front of me, like totally unexpectedly. And so, it's like, and they both had their ups and downs. The one thing I will say is that, having gone through with my mom, I was burned out physically, mentally, and emotionally from the whole cancer journey.
Sure.
Right. And so then the actual passing is, it can be like the straw that broke the camel's back. And And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because I have worked with so many clients at the end of their lives, and I've worked with family whose loved ones were at the end of their lives, and it's helping through that stress response. And by the stress response, I mean not just how it made you feel mentally and emotionally, it's also the physical impact, right? Because, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, that stress, whether it's chronic stress, which we've all had for the past couple years or more,
Mm-hmm.
or whether it's sudden overwhelming stress, right? It has a most definite physiological impact on your body and makes you more susceptible and at increased risk. And I call that physical level flame out
Mm-hmm.
syndrome. And it makes you at risk for increased infections. So you're
Absolutely.
feeling it
I'm
unfortunately,
still
because
listening. Rocky's
hey,
eating a wire. I mean,
I know
Zeus is
Zeus,
eating a wire.
they and the that and the reason for that is that it tanks your immune system, which is also unfortunately puts you at greater risk, you
Yeah.
people in general, for cancer. There's the Simba hold. There you go. That's Zeus is our comic relief in our lighthearted relief in this in such a deep topic. It puts you at more risk for heart disease, and I know
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about before that you have a prior history of that. It puts you at risk for autoimmune conditions, right? And it may start just with the low energy and the sniffles,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's so important. As I said, yes, loss is a fact of life. Grieving is a necessary process,
Mm-hmm.
including anger and all the was it 5 or 7, depending on who you talk to, stages of grieving. And at the same time, what we can do here is help make sure that you stay as healthy as possible and move through the grieving
Mm-hmm.
stages as smoothly and quickly as possible, because the challenge is that so many people get stuck in one stage of grieving. I'll take, for example,
Yeah.
anger,
Sure. Sure.
right? And they never move out of that, and they become bitter and resentful. And what does that do?
Sure.
It causes like ongoing stress, and it festers inside, like, just like an abscess, right?
Yeah. Sure.
That if you don't clean it out and allow it to heal, right, it's going to go inward and can like go deeper and deeper and cause like way more damage. So the 2 points, and I'm with most of our hot seat guests, what I'm doing is I'm picking 2 points that are the most, rather than doing a recipe. Number 1, when you are in this space, when you are in survival mode, no matter how good a survivor you are, you're overwhelmed, and you already said that, right? You're
Sure.
exhausted. It's like you have enough on your plate, let alone, giving you like, 100 steps or even 10 steps, right? So two steps. So the very first point, because you've mentioned it, that it's an area that you are moving through right now, anger on multiple levels, and gallbladder meridian, side of the eye, is the negative emotion associated with the gallbladder meridian is anger, rage, resentment. And people always, like, until I explain, they're like, rage, like I don't feel rage. Like, when we're talking that. We're not just, talking about the socially acceptable anger, right? It's your unconscious mind where there is no logic, right? And it's like you got the Hulk raging inside, and it's almost like this volcano that if you're not careful, it's going to blow up, right? And your unconscious mind, number one, will do whatever it can to keep you safe and others safe, especially when it comes to rage. So this is one way that it's not just about stress causing the physical impacts of the exhaustion and smacking down your immune system. This is where your unconscious mind will actually create physical conditions like pain to distract you, right? Because it views that anger as that you may not even be consciously aware of as being a danger to you or somebody else if it does bubble over like a volcano. Like erupt, that's the phrase, right? Erupt like a volcano. So this is why it's so important to tap or hold the end of the gallbladder meridian. So it's on the bone, just to the side of the eye. You don't have to say anything special, right? Because you're already feeling it.
Right.
Right. And so please just work with me and trust in the process. And I'm saying this to everyone listening as well, that even if you think that you're not experiencing any kind of anger, I've had clients say, oh, I don't get angry ever.
We all get angry.
Right. Right. I say, remember that it's your unconscious mind who has no logic. It's a completely feeling creature, and it's got the mentality of a 5-year-old. So think about a 5-year-old throwing himself or herself on the floor, screaming and kicking, going, it's not fair. Right? That's the rage. It's the, and really that inner child is going, I lost my mommy. Right? It's not fair. So as much as possible, this is such, and what this will do is will help you move through the anger stage to the point where the positive emotion of the gallbladder meridian is, I'm reaching out with love and forgiveness. You don't even have to say the words. That's the positive, right? And it's love and forgiveness, maybe for your mom, because she wouldn't listen to you and she refused to do, eat well or exercise like you wanted her to. It's also forgiveness for yourself that, maybe if I'd just been better at convincing her, right? Maybe there was something more that could have been done.
Right. You always say that, right?
Right. So that's the guilt part that can come in, but not the idea of releasing that anger, rage, resentment, and allowing yourself to feel love and forgiveness
right.
for anyone concerned. Okay. So as much as possible, just people don't even know they need to know you're doing it, right?
Be in the car, I'll be like this, like,
and you don't have to tap. You can tap, but it's
you could rub, you could just keep it there.
Yeah. Right? Like you can just be like resting your hand there. People don't need to know. So I want you to just make this like your standard go-to.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
The other point, I could stop right there and it would be absolutely like phenomenal for you. And I'm looking at, I want to help you boost your immune system. Okay. And so the one point that I'm going to give you for that is the kidney meridian.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I know you've like been through my program. So it's following the collarbone down towards the breastbone, falling in on either side. Okay. And you can tap or hold, and I'm going to hold my thing up so I don't get it. But this is one area I actually
wrap it around your
tap.
ear. It looks a little funny, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
there you go. There you go. So this is one area I do recommend tapping through, mostly because, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, underneath the top half of your breastbone is your thymus gland, which is basically like your biggest immune system gland in the body that is responsible for fighting things like viral infections and cancer. Okay, so by tapping through here or holding, if you're in a public place and you don't want to be seen like, oh, right, whichever. Hey, I know you would rock that out too, Dr. Dan. And the kidney meridian is, I know I've talked about it in terms of its negative emotion. Here I want to go for the physical, right? This is the kidney meridian governs your bladder,
Your bladdy. Yes.
your bladdies, your kidney, your bladders,
Your bladdiator.
bladder, kidneys, and your sexual organs. So the positive emotion with this, because you talked a lot about overwhelm as being part of it. So let's talk about that. The negative emotion is feeling inadequate. I'm not up to this.
Right.
Right. So that's the negative. The positive emotion is I've got what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's the overwhelm. The physical side of this is that think of it in terms of your chakras. This is your root chakra. This is your survival. This is your primeval energy. Right. Your basic life energy. Right. So that's why that, and for the negative emotions, is why I'm giving you the kidney 27,
mm-hmm.
the end of the kidney meridian. Okay, so this is to help boost your life energy and boost your immune system. And bonus when you're tapping through over the thymus gland, because you're activating the thymus gland. Any questions about that?
Mm-mm.
So aside from the general instruction of do it as often as possible, really, when you are in a quiet space, you can take even like 3 deep breaths. So let's do that right now. So
Mm-hmm.
hold and you can hold both at the same time if you want.
I was just going to say, can I do that at the same time?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I always joke and say, like, when I'm working on myself, I'll start looking like, I'm doing some kind of Vulcan mind meld, because I'll be like holding different points, right? And I'll just move them around. So yeah, exactly. Okay. So in your case, 2 points. So side of the eye, gallbladder, collarbone point, kidney point, and take a deep breath in and hold. And slowly exhale. If you're not sure how that looks, breathe in 1, 2, 3, and hold 2, 3, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Always want the exhale to be as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Breathe in 2, 3, and hold 2, 3, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And one more time. Breathe in 2, 3, and hold 2, 3, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can release and check in. No, I didn't do a numbers thing often. Like when I'm working with clients, I'll ask before and after, like, what's the intensity?
Calmer.
So can you
definitely calmer?
Feeling calmer?
Definitely.
Now, I'm going to do this belatedly because we only held this point for 3 deep breaths.
Right.
And how, if you compare, like, on a scale of 0 to 10, where your anger and overwhelm were before and where it is now. Can you give me like a...
Sure. Absolutely. 7-8 before, 3-4 right now.
Perfect.
Lather,
So
rinse, and repeat.
you knew what I was going to say. You've heard me enough, right, Dr.
I
Dan?
have.
So that's pretty cool that with
Yeah.
3 deep breaths
Yeah.
and
Definitely
holding those
feel a lot
points,
calmer.
you were able
Definitely
to
feel
go
better.
basically 50% better.
Yep.
If I did my math right, from a 7 to 8 down to a 3 to 4.
Correct.
And so guaranteed that the more you do this, you're going to feel that number go down, that like the anger, the overwhelm. Now, you may feel other emotions or other things come up, right? That's part of the grieving process.
That's part of it. Yep.
Right? And that's where it's time to reach back out to me, and we'll reassess and see what new points and what new techniques, because it's not just about acupressure or tapping. It's, there's multiple things to do. And I appreciated that we were able to decrease it by 50% just with 3 deep breaths, holding those points.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Dan, for
Dr.
your
Irene,
vulnerability.
thank you very much. This has been great. Thank you very much. It's been very, very helpful and very beneficial. And for those of you listening in, we all have things that we have to deal with. So reach out to Dr. Irene.
If you feel that you need to work with us, the link is in my bio on how to apply to do that.
Awesome.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone listening. I saw Dr. Pesman of Vasey. I apologize for butchering your name ahead of time. And so I see his things he's asking. You guys remember Amos Restaurant in McLean? I don't know what he was mentioning there. Please drop an explanation in so that we know. And, everyone else, we want to hear from you, whether you're watching this live or on the recording. And if you want to be on the hot seat, drop a comment or DM us, and we'll be happy to set that up for you too.
And it's not that bad, I promise you. It's actually very good.
Well, the hot seat can get hot, but it's all about the more courageous you can be in being vulnerable, the better the results.
It's all good.
You take care, and everyone out there, we're here for you.
Thank you very much, everybody.